Page 6 is actually Part 1, Premiums Earned. And you'll notice that we're going to be talking about different parts and different schedules of the Yellow Book annual statement. Technically speaking, these are not actual components of the financial statement presentation themselves, but they are detail that goes to support those financial statements. And as we go through some of these, I'll try to point out some key figures, key amounts that tie back to totals within the actual financial statements themselves, pages 2, 3, 4, and 5. First, you'll notice that Part 1 has 4 columns, and they represent net premiums written, and net premiums written is simply the direct premiums written plus any assumed business that the company chooses to write, and subtracts from that any premiums that they pay to reinsurers to share in the risk of that premium they've written. When you're looking at Part 1, you'll also notice that down the left-hand column of the page, you'll see that those rows are separated into 35 different line items, and those represent the actual line of business. Now, it's important to keep in mind that as you go through the various parts and schedules within the annual statement, you're going to see a consistent approach to what represents these lines of business. So you'll note up at the top, line 1 is fire. That's always going to be line 1 in any one of these parts, in any one of these schedules that you'll see in the Yellow Book annual statement. So there is consistency in the structure of the various parts and schedules that we're going to talk about. As I mentioned, column 1 is net premiums written. We've already gone over the definition of what that represents. Column 2 is the unearned premium December 31st prior year. So you can actually go back, and it references this in the column. It points you back to column 3, last year's Part 1. So you can go back and reference where these numbers are coming from in prior periods. Column 3 is the unearned premium December 31st current year. So that's referenced by column 5, Part 1A. Column 4 is simply the premiums earned during the current year, and they give you the calculation for how that's computed within that part. So really you're looking at column 1 plus column 2 minus column 3. That's going to give you the premiums earned, and once again, if you look to the left and go down that column, it will give you the earned premium for that particular line of business within the annual statement, page 6. Moving to page 7, which is in fact Part 1A, is titled Recapitulation of All Premiums. That's a fancy way for saying here's where we're going to restate the source of the premiums for the computation of earned premiums in the statutory annual statement. It's a similar structure to Part 1, page 6. You can see that the line of business is listed on the left-hand side of the page. Column 1, the amount unearned running 1 year or less from the date of policy. And here you're getting into a situation where you may have a property casualty insurance company writing a particular line of business where the policy term exceeds 1 year. Column 2, amount unearned running more than 1 year from the date of the policy. Simply the opposite of column 1. Column 3 is the earned but unbilled premium. In some cases, you've got companies whose billing system lags the accounting system in terms of the earned premium. They want to know what that is within that column. Column 4 is a reserve for rate credits and retrospective adjustments based on experience. Those are things that touch specific types of products and lines of business. You're typically not going to see those in your standard property and casualty insurance company. Column 5 is the total reserve for unearned premiums. And here again, as you're going to see in most cases when you're looking at these parts, they're going to give you the calculation for how you get these total numbers. In this case, it's columns 1 plus 2 plus 3 and column 4. Next, we're going to talk about page 8, which is Part 1B, Premiums Written. And here, in some cases, if you look at these parts, in a lot of cases, people tend to think that this part should be Part 1 and Part 1 should be Part 1B. And the reason for that is this particular page, column 1 starts with the direct business in terms of the direct premium written. And we've already gone through the definition of how to get to net written premium. This will take you from direct business, as shown in column A, and once again, if you look down the left-hand column, you're going to see 1 through 35 represented as each particular line of business or product that the company is making available. Next is columns 2 and 3, and these are reinsurance representations that impact the premium calculation. Column 2 is from affiliates and column 3 is from non-affiliates. In some cases, a property casualty insurance company may actually have a reinsurance company in its corporate group or corporate structure that it's using to seed off some of that business that it's writing. So you want to keep track of these companies that are affiliated and those that are not affiliated, and that's the purpose of columns 2 and 3. Next, columns 4 and 5, once again, it's related to the reinsurance, and this is reinsurance ceded. So column 4 is to affiliates, and column 5 is to non-affiliates. This is the reinsurance ceded. When a company writes business and they don't want to retain all of the risk, they're going to cede off some of that risk. Well, when they do that, that reinsurance company is going to be expected to be paid or compensated for taking that risk. Once again, as with the other parts, when you get to column 6, that's net premiums written calculation, and it is columns 1, 2, 3, -4, and -5. So you're taking the direct premiums written in the first column, you're adding the voluntary business that's written through reinsurance assumed, you're subtracting the reinsurance premiums that are ceded off to share the risk with other companies, and the remaining result is net premiums written.